Tonight, chemical chaos. School children hurt during a botched science experiment on the northern beaches. Case closed, but the pain lives on. Police finally identify a notorious Bondi rapist. Sydney gets a pounding from gale force winds and they'll be back tomorrow. Why we're being asked to save water even after all that rain. Day one of free travel on Sydney's trains just as our ferries strike more trouble. And Qatar officially welcomes the world to the World Cup and then kicks an own goal with fans.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Mark Ferguson.
Good evening. A science experiment at a Sydney primary school has exploded with 11 children suffering burns, 2 of them seriously. They'd been conducting the test outside at Manly West Public School when the wind whipped up the chemical reaction, burning their skin.
It was a fleet of paramedics, police, fire brigade, a huge and instant response. Rushing to Manly West Public just as quickly were concerned parents with no clear idea initially which children had been burnt. They learnt it was Class 5W.
Just that there was an explosion and not sure who it was, so I just got down here. I mean, my kids aren't involved, thank God.
11 were, and their teacher. Burns for one student required an urgent airlift to the Children's Hospital Westmead. A second child was taken there by ambulance, with 9 others and the teacher ferried to Royal North Shore and Northern Beaches hospitals with only superficial injuries.
I saw a lot of people crying and running around. It's kind of scary.
Police forensics examined where it happened, outdoors at the northern edge of the playground. The science experiment resembles this. It's called the Black Snake, mixing baking soda and sugar with accelerant as a catalyst to ignite a chemical reaction. On a windy day, not ideal.
Obviously the wind conditions have impacted this particular experiment today and have blown some of the chemicals that they were using around a little bit more than was expected.
That meant burns to students' chests, legs, arms. At school pickup, there were hugs from relieved parents.
I was year 5, mine's in year 4 and 6.
Well, paramedics have spoken to us on camera, parents too, and typically the Education Department has not. We're told it will send out a written statement. No tricky questions for them on camera about how a teacher burnt 11 children. At least the Education Minister offered a statement when she didn't have to. We will provide whatever resources the school community needs in the coming days, including counselling for students and staff. Off camera, parents told us the school should have identified immediately which class was involved.
The school today handled this emergency particularly well. They've managed to lock down and evacuate other students within the vicinity. They've brought them all out to the playground. The school offered immediate support.
Let's go live to Robert Ovadia at Northern Beaches Hospital now, where some of the children were taken. Rob, how are they now?
Hi Mark, they're okay and they should be fine. The 9 students in particular, as well as the 4 who were brought here, only superficial burns. The majority of concern, of course, is for the 2 who were taken to the Children's Hospital at Westmead. One in particular who was airlifted. Not only did the foam go on his face, creating serious burns there, but there were fears also for his airway. So he remains there tonight. Police are not only investigating this, also Safe Work New South Wales, and as much as it indicates that it was very, very unwise for the teacher to be holding this experiment in these windy conditions, you have to feel a degree of sympathy for him. He would be inconsolable having done this tonight.
Robert Ovadia at Frenchs Forest, thank you. One of the state's worst serial rapists, dubbed the Beast of Bondi, has finally been identified decades after he terrorised women across the eastern suburbs. Keith Sims, a husband, father and grandfather, is believed responsible for 31 attacks, but the cold case breakthrough won't bring justice for his many victims.
40 years to unmask the Beast of Bondi, Keith Mago Sims from La Perouse.
He's a very vicious person with an intense hatred of women. He stalks his victims.
31 victims over 15 years. Frustratingly, Sims will never face justice. The 66-year-old died in March.
Today there will be, a sense of comfort knowing of who it is, but they will also feel as though this person hasn't done his time.
Until now, Sims was known as a loving family man, a husband of almost 44 years.
They love one another and would do everything together. Their children and grandchildren never wanted anything. He was with them 100%.
Between 1985 and 2001, women across the eastern suburbs were terrorised by the sex attacker dubbed the Centennial Park Rapist, the Tracksuit Rapist and the Beast of Bondi. His victims aged between 13 and 55, attacked in their own homes or while exercising, threatened with a knife, then sexually assaulted.
This Bondi beast was an animal.
The breakthrough coming from another man's DNA, a prisoner.
Their DNA is matched against the database and it comes up that this person is a male relative of the DNA from the rapes that they've been investigating for 30 odd years.
Using advanced DNA technology, detectives mapped out a sprawling family tree with 5 branches of extended generations, featuring 324 individuals. That number was whittled down to 120. Then police ruled people out based on their age or location, or whether or not they were alive at the time of the crimes. Finally, just one man was left, Keith Sims.
Sims took his sinister secrets to the grave, but the truth wouldn't stay buried. Ashley Hansen, 7 News.
Strong winds have caused havoc for firefighters in Western Sydney, with flames from a house fire spreading to neighbouring properties. Tonight, 2 families are homeless. Others lucky the blaze was extinguished before their homes were also destroyed.
From the sky, it was obvious what was unfolding. But on the ground in West Hoxton, residents were oblivious. First came the sounds, then the smell.
I just heard a massive bang. Me and Mum ran out and we just saw massive black smoke from out of the roofs.
Neighbours curious to know what's going on. Some are more fortunate than others.
I grabbed the dog. I've nothing in the phone.
Leslie was looked over by paramedics as a precaution. She escaped before the flames took hold. The fire didn't start at her place, but from the property behind. Strong winds fanning the flames, making the job even more difficult for the 50 firefighters called to the scene.
Our whole life is in that house.
Which will need major repairs. 2 families now homeless.
There is significant damage to both properties and there's some minor damage to some other adjoining properties.
Firefighters spent a number of hours here dousing hot spots to ensure the fire didn't reignite in these strong winds. At this stage, it's believed it started in a backyard cooking area.
We're tough, we're Aussies, we're tough, we'll get on with it, we'll be right.
Leonie Ryan, 7 News.
Those winds also meant Sydney Airport had to restrict planes to just one runway, and even then it was a bumpy ride for some. There was damage too, with trees brought down from the coast to the mountains.
The leafy eastern suburbs a little less leafy this afternoon. This tree coming down outside Maroubra Bay Public School, just missing 4th grade teacher Donna Hall's pink hatchback.
I was just teaching kids in the classroom and the principal came in and said, you better go and have a look at your car.
It wasn't the only one. Gale force winds made light work of this tall timber in Springwood as SES crews were kept busy again.
We've had 200 jobs overnight in the Sydney metropolitan area in relation to these heavy winds.
Planes had trouble landing at Sydney Airport, operations down to one runway. There were queues on the tarmac and in the sky. Flights in and out of the city delayed.
Just coming into Sydney, that's when it got a bit bumpy.
The pilot did seriously the best job. It was rough as.
We were up in the air for actually quite a while, but it was very bumpy on the way down.
An 85 km/h gust was felt on Sydney Harbour. Similar winds in our west as well. They were even stronger down south, 95 km/h at Nowra, while in the snowy mountains, gusts managed to top 100 k's. The wild weather bringing a whiteout to Perisher and a warning to brace for more, just 10 days out from summer.
We are anticipating further calls and as the wind continues into the afternoon.
Tom Hartley, 7 News.
Water everywhere and not a drop to drink. It's not that bad in Sydney, but it seems flooding rain has left Warragamba Dam full of mud and debris. A challenge for filtration systems, prompting calls for everyone to conserve water.
After months and months of rain, the last thing you'd expect to hear.
You don't know the value of water until it's gone.
Olympic whitewater specialist Penrith's Jess Fox teaming up with Sydney Water to save what we thought we had in abundance.
I was so surprised to learn that actually because of those recent weather events, the floods, the bushfires, the water quality is really impacted in the dam.
Warragamba Dam is full.
These have been extreme events, and the amount of load that's come in during the storms has been higher than I've ever seen.
Beneath the surface, there's a more complex process at play which determines where exactly our drinking water comes from and how much is clean enough for our taps. Incoming water from big rain events is often the poorest quality, full of dirt and debris. If it's colder, it will settle toward the bottom. If it's warmer, nearer the top. In either case, the outlet height is adjusted, drawing the cleanest water out. But right now, too murky for filters to keep up. Only 15 metres of a possible 60 clean enough to drink.
That's why we want to raise the wall of Warragamba to provide more supply, which then gives Sydney better security.
But a recent report by Sydney Water said raising the dam wall would only make things worse because storing water for longer makes it dirtier. So there'd be even more pressure on filters.
We need to have a conversation about whether we need more desalination in our system. We should be having conversations about water efficiency.
With shorter showers and full dishwashers, that's been left to us for now. Tom Saker, 7 News.
It has been a disastrous start to the World Cup for host nation Qatar, both on and off the field. Their opening match ended in defeat, while organisers were left embarrassed after yet another controversial moment during the pre-game entertainment.
In a stadium styled as a Bedouin tent, the World Cup begins in a flap.
Welcome and good luck to all.
After 12 years of controversy, the Cup kicks off with another country condemned for its lack of it.
With tolerance and respect, we can live together under one big home.
The performance with a disabled YouTube spotlight on Qatar's dismal record on foreign workers' rights, women and homosexuality. 3, 2, 1. Then, for the tiny host nation, the tournament appeared over as quickly as it had begun. Ecuador winning 2-0. Qatar made history, the first host nation in a World Cup to lose an opening match. Not that Ecuador's fans could celebrate the way they wanted to. Chanting "We want beer" in Spanish after Qatar's last-minute booze ban. Troubles outside the stadium too, fan zones hopelessly overcrowded. Tens of thousands had tried to enter, trapping children in the crush.
We are expending so much. How many racing? They didn't organise properly.
In fact, $200 billion. They're hoping their fortunes improve. Chris Reason, 7 News.
The Prime Minister is facing a drawn-out battle to pass Labor's signature Industrial Relations Bill before Parliament wraps up for the year. Anthony Albanese insists he's fighting for fairness, but business leaders have slammed the reform.
He says his industrial reforms will put the little people at the centre of the big picture. Anthony Albanese slaps down the coalition and business who he says wrongly suggest the sky will fall in.
They say it every time and they are wrong every time. And we will push ahead like we do every time.
His audience a union conference, but his message directed at an unconvinced Senate crossbench.
I do not feel confident in still voting for it within the next 2-week period.
Business says the so-called single stream changes allowing workers in similar small and medium-sized businesses to bargain together will lead to industrial mayhem.
We're concerned that this bill will result in higher costs, it will result in disruption to business, it will result in a loss of jobs.
I just do not believe anything that's been said about that. It's all scaremongering.
This is the Parliament's big chance to get wages moving again by fixing a broken bargaining system.
It's now a question of tactics and resolve. The government only needs a single crossbench vote in the Senate to get the laws passed. Jackie Lambie's a no for now, which leaves the focus on one person, former rugby international David Pocock. Senator Pocock backs most of the bill but wants the multi-employer bargaining issue dealt with separately. The government says it will not split the bill.
To take little bits out, almost a cherry pick, unravels the bill.
The Senate will now work overtime, possibly adding Friday's sittings to reach a vote before Parliament's due to rise for the year next week. Mark Riley, 7 News.
A Sri Lankan cricket player accused of sexually assaulting a Sydney woman has now been released from custody. Danushka Gunatilaka was granted bail on strict conditions following his arrest earlier this month. The 31-year-old is required to follow a curfew, report to police daily and surrender his passport. He will return to court in January. Police have made some disturbing discoveries during a crackdown on knife-related crime. While searching 1,200 people, they found dozens of blades and 6 guns as they battled growing gang violence.
Monday morning in Cranebrook, and police are hunting another violent offender.
You can never be fully comfortable. You've always got to watch your back.
A 31-year-old man who was stabbed in the torso and back is the latest victim of Sydney's knife crime.
Knives seem to be the latest thing.
A trend police want to end.
We've seen proliferation of youth gangs across in the city areas.
Over the weekend, officers concentrated on those areas, targeting young people and any violent offenders. At the same time, one man was stabbed to death in Campbelltown, while a teenage boy was knifed in Castle Hill.
If you are found to have a knife and you have the intent of causing harm to someone else, you can end up with 7 years imprisonment.
Out of the 1,200 people searched, 144 were charged. Police seizing 48 knives, 6 guns and 7 other illegal weapons.
We apprehended 5 youths at Penrith after robbing a 16-year-old kid.
In the past 12 months, there have been more than 700 knife attacks here in New South Wales. 25 have been fatal.
It ends in tragedy no matter what. Either someone ends up dead or seriously injured.
Or in jail. Natasha Squarey, 7 News.
Sydney commuters began a week of free train travel today, the rail union's $8 million price for keeping services running more or less on time. But it's not the only public transport issue, with more strife emerging for the problematic Emerald-class ferries.
A good way to start the week.
Yeah, it was a nice Monday welcome.
Breezing through Opal Gates, Sydney trains, free of charge, through to Friday.
I feel like I deserve it after being crammed into the trains for so long.
I think I'm going to stick with the train and not even get the ferry.
For one ferry, there's no choice. The Fairlight, after its steering failed on the weekend near Sydney Heads.
This has been a disaster from day one.
The latest breakdown of Sydney's second-generation Emerald-class vessels. Since their introduction last year, the ferry's problems include broken windows and rudder damage in big swells, docking issues at Manly, and now steering faults.
Not being able to steer can cause serious problems, and if not just throw passengers around like rag dolls, it's not safe.
Just one vessel, the Balmoral, remains in service, restricted to the harbour at low speeds. There are calls to dock all 3.
And tell the public that they will be safe on a reliable ferry service.
Operators say the failure of the Fairlight is being investigated.
At no point were any customers in danger. The vessel has a backup system on board.
The new Chinese-made Emerald-class ferries, unions say, have spent much of their time in sick bay, today reigniting the argument over Sydney transport built overseas. Like the mothballed intercity train fleet at the centre of the rail dispute, like the Fairlight going nowhere.
We can and we will fix this boat.
Chris Marr, 7 News.
Time to check the forecast now. Angie, are the strong winds still a concern?
Well, Mark, after reaching 85 kilometres per hour in Sydney today, conditions should start to settle. This yellow zone shows the current warning area for those damaging winds. Still stretches from the Riverina across to the south coast and north to the metro region. A strong cold front causing that wild weather, though, is shifting off the coast. Once that happens, conditions will start to ease back tonight. Incredibly, southern New South Wales was cold enough for some late spring snow. Thanks to that system, the ski fields were white with the unseasonable change, even a dusting recorded near Canberra. Sydney was certainly warmer with a top of 25, but out in the wind it felt closer to 16 degrees at the time. Calmer days are ahead. Details soon, Mark.
Hope so, Angie. Thank you. There's growing concern about buy now, pay later schemes. Are people taking on too much debt? The government now considering safeguards to protect shoppers from themselves. That's next. Also, 2 heroes tackle a killer inside a US nightclub. Nuclear fears, fresh concern over Ukraine's largest power plant. A tribute to Olivia Newton-John as Taylor Swift dominates the American Music Awards. And later, the next generation of computer whiz kids, why cybersecurity is now a part of the school curriculum. Welcome back. It may soon be harder to access buy now, pay later services. Millions of Australians have accounts with companies including Afterpay and ZipPay. But the federal government is considering changes including requiring credit checks to prevent consumers racking up too much debt.
We want to ensure that where these products are being offered, they're being offered safely to consumers and people aren't getting themselves into hot water.
Any reforms won't be announced until next year. 5 people have been murdered and dozens more hurt in the latest mass shooting in America. A lone gunman has opened fire inside a gay nightclub in Colorado and was only stopped when 2 brave bystanders risked everything to tackle him.
The grief and anger here are unbearable but familiar.
We are a strong community that has shown resilience in the face of hate and violence in the past, and we will do so again.
Just before midnight, as the music blared, 22-year-old Anderson Lee Aldridge walked onto the dance floor and started shooting.
I was actually on the dance floor when I heard 4 to 5 shots ring out.
Joshua Thurman was celebrating his birthday.
All I can think about is everything, my life. Just everything, friends, family.
It only ended when 2 heroic patrons dragged the killer to the ground and started beating him senseless.
And were able to stop the suspect from continuing to kill.
But 5 people already lay dead and dozens more were wounded.
Pray for the individuals that were injured.
The state motto here is nothing without God, and Colorado Springs is a deeply religious, ultra-conservative pocket. For the LGBTQ community, this club was a place they felt most at home and safe until this. Just like the Pulse nightclub in Florida, where 49 people were massacred 6 years ago.
We have Columbine, we have Aurora, we have Planned Parenthood. Now we have this. What is it going to take?
It's a question America has grappled with many, many times, but just can't find an answer. In Colorado Springs, Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
Ukraine's largest nuclear power plant has been damaged by shelling, with the United Nations nuclear watchdog now warning those responsible are playing with fire. There have been at least 12 explosions at the Zaporizhzhia site, which remains in Russian-controlled territory. There have been reports of some damage to buildings, systems and equipment, but none yet critical to safety and security. Russia and Ukraine are blaming each other for the attacks. A roller skating Pink has opened the American Music Awards in LA. She later sang a tribute to Olivia Newton-John. Taylor Swift dominated the awards, taking home all 6 she was nominated for, including Artist of the Year. There are new emergencies this evening as those floodwaters that devastated Forbes and Eugowra move downstream. Next, the race to save more towns in our central west with dangerous river levels on the way. The urgent warning about electric scooters and bicycles ahead of Christmas. We hear from legendary cyclist Anna Meares, chosen to lead our Olympic team to Paris in 2024.
Ahead in sport, gloves are off. David Warner savages Cricket Australia for their handling of his leadership ban.
Welcome back. While the clean-up continues at Forbes and Eugowra after last week's deadly flooding, the wall of water responsible is far from gone. The flood peak is slowly working its way down the Lachlan River and has now arrived at Condobolin, wreaking havoc as it goes. Forewarned and forearmed, residents have been building a giant levee around the town to protect what they can.
In the heart of the West, the worst floods ever known.
flooding that we have not seen since records began.
Condobolins farming families determined their homes won't be lost. Here, building a wall of sandbags to hold back an inland sea.
We have these slow, painful flows of water just climbing, not knowing when it's going to stop.
The SES says the Lachlan River could have already peaked at 7.6 metres, just shy of the 7.8 metres predicted.
It's like the little Chinaman in Tiananmen Square staring down the face of a great big tank, wondering if it's going to stop or not.
On the next street, we'll let you go ahead.
The town has been protected in part by a 4-kilometre makeshift levee, hurriedly built of sandbags and dirt, and now nicknamed the Great Wall of Condo.
It's just amazing to see it, but devastating for some people, unfortunately.
The town is preparing for the Lachlan River to potentially peak again when the water from Eugowra arrives. It could be a difference of about 20 centimetres, unnoticeable for people in town, but devastating for farming families already badly impacted.
Floods come and droughts come and all sorts of things, so, it's the way it is.
Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
New South Wales Police were partly responsible for a series of violent attacks on gay men decades ago. A special inquiry has been told. The world first hearing will examine evidence about dozens of hate crimes across Sydney, some of which remain unsolved.
A powerful day for a dark chapter in Sydney's history. Stories told of the hate crimes alleged to have occurred against the LGBTIQ community.
How could you be open because you didn't know whether a response might be violence against you?
Author and activist Gary Wotherspoon recounting his own trauma from a time where his sexuality was illegal.
I think my evidence was probably important just to show how long anti-gay violence has been occurring.
Homosexuality was decriminalised in New South Wales in 1984. An estimated 88 gay men killed between 1976 and 2000. At a time, the gay community was seen as a major driver for the spread of AIDS.
It could kill more Australians than World War II.
The gay and lesbian community says it gave violence a reason to spread.
In their minds, they were given a kind of perverse moral justification to bash and kill gay men.
During his evidence, Gary Wotherspoon claimed New South Wales Police was partly responsible for facilitating a number of hate crimes over the years. He's now calling for institutional change within the force to make sure that no minority has to suffer the same trauma that he and many others once did. The hearing will run until the end of the week. Liam Tapper, 7 News.
There's a timely warning ahead of Christmas for anyone considering buying gifts with lithium-ion batteries, such as electric bikes or scooters. The fire brigade says care is needed when recharging, and they should not be left connected to a power source overnight. Since January, crews have responded to 180 lithium-ion battery fires, including an e-bike that caught fire and burnt down a home in Manly. The batteries can build up intense heat until they explode, causing toxic and flammable gases. The next Olympic Games are less than 2 years away, and the Aussie team has a new leader heading into Paris. Our country's greatest ever track cyclist, Anna Meares, will take on the role of chef de mission.
No stranger to carrying the country's flag and the hopes of a nation, Anna Meares begins a new Olympic mission.
I feel very honoured and a little bit nervous but excited as well.
To be named Australia's next Olympic chef de mission for the Paris 2024 Games.
Anna will go from being a champion athlete to a champion of athletes.
A track cycling champion, the four-time Olympian has 6 medals, one of every colour. It will now be her job to lead and support the next golden generation.
To watch athletes go and do their job, I think is going to be stressful watching. I'd much rather be in it, but at the same time, I'm at that point in my career where I can, I think, offer some good support.
Anna's focus is very much on Paris, but she does have an eye to the future. If she can stay in the job, she may lead an Australian Olympic team at a home games in 2032, including a track cycling squad that will compete at a velodrome that bears her name. That will be in 10 years' time. She has just 2 to prepare for the next games,
with a lot to learn.
I'm jumping in the deep end and I'm learning on the go, but I've always been open-minded to those sorts of challenges. I like being challenged.
Leading the green and gold on the search for Olympic glory. Joel Dry, 7 News.
It's only Monday, but already Australians are picking up Black Friday deals. The week-long shopping spree now rivals the Boxing Day sales in size and spend, with savvy shoppers managing to save thousands before Christmas.
The calm from above hides the hive of activity inside Amazon's Western Sydney fulfilment centre as its Black Friday sales kick off today.
We are going to have 9 whole days of savings.
Olympian turned entrepreneur Tyler Martin is flogging his non-alcoholic drinks on the platform with one eye on Christmas.
We've got our award-winning advent calendar, so it's a drink a day for a full month.
Amazon is far from the only retailer jumping the gun. Bose noise-cancelling headphones are $150 cheaper, while on eBay Nespresso coffee machines are 40% off. You can get up to $2,000 off a TV at Bing Lee and huge discounts on pots and pans at Myer. Many Dyson products are cheaper, and your next getaway on Booking.com could be 30% less.
We predicted that 33% of Christmas shopping has already been done in the first 3 weeks of November, with another 25% being done this week.
The Retailers Association forecasts Australians will spend a record $6.2 billion during this year's Black Friday sales, with research showing the average discount offered is a generous 22%.
Biggest Black Friday sales we've had on record. We expect 1.5 million people to walk through our doors over the next few days.
Gemma Acton, 7 News.
Multiple sclerosis can make life extremely challenging. Next, a new facility in Western Sydney promising state-of-the-art care for thousands of people. Classrooms of the future, how Sydney students are being trained in cyber security. Avoiding a big danger on our roads, the latest research, how to stay safe around trucks.
Soon in sport, a big blow for the Roosters. Angus Crichton set to miss the start of the NRL season.
And we should enjoy some sunshine without the gale force winds tomorrow. Details soon.
Welcome back. Time now for a check on the markets with finance editor Gemma Acton.
Thanks, Mark. A solid start has faded into a soft finish. The ASX 200 sliding 13 points to 7,139. Miners, including BHP, Rio Tinto and Fortescue, were among today's biggest fallers. The Aussie dollar has been losing ground since mid-last week. It's now buying 66.4 US cents, while iron ore prices are back to their highest point in nearly 3 months. They've been helped by recent signs the Chinese government is beginning to loosen its strict COVID-19 rules. What happens to the price of our largest export next year will largely depend on how resilient demand from China remains in the face of a global economic slowdown. Mark.
Gemma, thank you. At least 85 new homes and a state-of-the-art health facility have been earmarked for a site in Western Sydney. The state government wants to rezone a 5.9 hectare block off Betty Cuthbert Drive at Lidcombe. The development includes a facility called MS Plus to provide support and accommodation for those with multiple sclerosis. In a sign of the times, the state's high school computer studies syllabus has been upgraded to focus more on cyber security. The skills are now in high demand, with cybercrime and hackers costing the Australian economy tens of billions of dollars.
Programmed to collect, detect colours and even take out obstacles. These robots created and coded by 16-year-old students from the Ponds High School.
I love the idea of coding. You can be creative.
When I finish school, I want to become an IT software engineer.
For the first time in 2 decades, the state's computer curriculum has been revamped, focusing on cybersecurity and artificial intelligence.
Students behind me will probably have jobs in the future that don't even exist yet. I had a boy build a disaster app where you're able to pin where disasters happened across a map.
Around 185 online attacks are reported in Australia each day, and with fewer than 100 police officers trained in the area, down the track these budding cyber detectives could be the ones who outthink the criminals.
We can't expect them just to come into the workforce fresh. They need to start learning this at school.
Computers are the way of the future, even when it comes to how students are assessed. Right now, only one HSC subject has on-screen exams. But in the future, everyone could be sitting their exams online.
How amazing would it be if there was a chemistry exam that was online where you're actually watching the experiment in real time?
Amy Clemens, 7 News.
For motorists, trucks can present some of the biggest dangers on our roads, but there are ways to stay safe, the knowledge that could prevent a crash. Don't miss that story soon on 7 News. But now Matt is here with sport, and Matt, the Socceroos have been given extra fuel for their World Cup opener.
Yeah, that's right, Fergo. France are already firing off the sledges, claiming they don't even know who the Aussie players are. Details next. Plus, hitting out, David Warner attacks Cricket Australia over the way they've handled his lifetime leadership ban. And why the Women's Big Bash finals are a family affair for Sixers star Aaron Burns. Welcome back. David Warner is now one step from being allowed to captain his country. He savaged Cricket Australia for treating him like a criminal with the lifetime leadership ban over Sandpapergate. Now, a complicated code of conduct review will let him fight to overturn it.
The gloves were on when David Warner stepped in the ring with world title challenger Tim Tszyu, but they were well and truly off when it came to Cricket Australia's handling of his lifetime leadership ban.
Banning someone for life, I think, is a bit harsh. I'm not a criminal. You should get a right of an appeal.
That day's edging ever closer for the Aussie opener. The governing body has finally amended its code of conduct, allowing Warner to apply for the ban he received in the wake of Sandpapergate to be lifted.
It's tad disappointing that when you make a decision in 2018, it's in 4 days, and then this takes 9 months. So that's the hardest thing. It's traumatic for me and my family and everyone else that was involved in it.
If the ban's overturned, Warner will offer yet another white ball captaincy option.
Definitely, he's a great candidate. His knowledge on the game and the way he thinks about the game is very good.
After tomorrow's one-day dead rubber against England at the MCG, the focus shifts to Perth for next week's first test against the West Indies.
We always look forward to coming here. It's a nice place, the people really love, cricket here, and they really cherish Test cricket.
Sixers veteran Aaron Burns is cherishing being a new mum, crediting Jack with a role in her best ever Big Bash season.
Having my son around this year has probably meant that my timekeeping skills have been on point.
The finals begin on Wednesday night. Nick Markham, 7 News.
The Socceroos say they're about to show the French stars and the world exactly who they are. They're 2 days from a shot at revenge on the World Cup champions, who say they've never heard of our Aussie players.
Moving on from the cruel injury blow to key attacker Martin Boyle.
It's just another reason for us to, do it for him.
The Socceroos in Qatar to reintroduce themselves to the superstars of France.
Non, pas du tout, Jean.
No, not at all. I don't know any of them.
He did acknowledge Australia almost stunned the eventual champions at Russia 2018.
This is our second chance. We were so close but so far last time.
Benzema, Pogba and others out. Usual talk of French egos clashing. The Socceroos sense a chance.
There'll always be, upsets and the script's never written.
A controversial World Cup before it even began started amid talk a fix was in. Claims Qatar had paid off Ecuador to lose.
It's knocked in by Enner Valencian.
An early goal denied by new semi-automated offside technology. They can't put a toenail wrong anymore. But a penalty and coolest finish by Valencia.
And he rolls it in.
Put those fears of a fix to rest. Prayers answered with a second goal, 2-0 win and wild jubilation back home. Add first hosts to lose the opener in the Cup's 92 years to doubts about Qatar. Football, far from home, England are feeling the heat before facing Iran tonight. Matt Carmichael, 7 News.
Roosters star Angus Crichton will serve a 2-game ban for striking Chanel Harris-Tavita in the opening fortnight of next NRL season. The Kangaroos are starting to go their separate ways in England. Some are heading home with the World Cup trophy, while others have travel plans. Crichton's European vacation will include a trip to Amsterdam with Harris-Tavita.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Keen to just relax a little bit. It's been a really long year and been a lot of pressure.
The Gillaroos are still in party mode, tackling a few sports that are less physically demanding. Daniel Ricciardo is expected to have a minor presence in F1 next year as a reserve driver for his old team Red Bull. The Aussie ended his difficult two-year stint at McLaren with a 9th place finish at the season-ending Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Thrills and excitement right to the checkered flag. Is he going to get past Daniel Ricciardo? It's going to be close.
It's obviously beat me down a bit, you know, the last couple of years, and that's where I just need a little bit of time removed from it to find a part of myself again and rebuild a little bit.
Dual world champ Max Verstappen signed off with a record-extending 15th win of the season. 6 a.m. on Wednesday, we'll all be cheering for the Socceroos. Let's hope it's not bonjour.
We know who they are. Thanks, Jenna.
Yes.
In a city littered with motorways, it's no surprise being sideswiped by a truck is one of the great fears on Sydney roads. Tonight we can show you unnerving vision of drivers on our tollways coming off second best to heavy vehicles as authorities ram home a message on blind spots.
A car merges into traffic on Sydney's M5 straight into a passing truck, then spins out of control as another disappears from this truckie's view until it too is clipped and rammed down the motorway.
There's issues there in terms of the amount of visibility that a truckie can actually see.
In a typical year, 59 people are killed and 282 seriously injured in heavy vehicle crashes, with rear-enders and sideswipes among the most common collisions.
New research from Transurban has found that New South Wales drivers might be putting themselves at risk because they don't know truck blind spots.
Trucks typically have 4 of them, immediately in front, directly behind and just off the driver's door, as well as a significant area on the passenger side, with drivers urged to make sure you can see the side mirrors and leave extra room where possible, as it can take trucks up to 40% longer to stop, like this on the M2.
Knowing where those blind spots are is going to keep yourself safe, make you feel far more comfortable on the road.
Drivers are reminded trucks use most major roads across New South Wales, not just our motorways, and we need to be careful now more than ever, with most roads worse for wear after months of bad weather and the upcoming festive season set to be a peak period for freight.
They're doing their job, getting goods into shops, getting them to your home.
You need to drive not only to be seen by truckies, but you need to drive to be safe.
Amber Laidler, 7 News.
Now Angie's back with the forecast. Ange, those wild winds are easing.
Mark will notice a big improvement by late evening, with gale force winds to be replaced with a strong breeze tomorrow. Details next.
Tonight on the latest from 7 News, too much stock to handle, why you shouldn't struggle to find what you're looking for in the Black Friday sales. Is superannuation in need of a shake-up? We'll ask the boss of a major fund. Plus the team about to take a very bold stand at the World Cup. When it breaks, we'll have it live at 10:50.
Life-changing help for families. The world first. Australian child experts putting parents in control. Only on 7 News at 6.
Tonight's 7 News headlines: 11 children and their teacher have suffered burns when a science experiment exploded at Balgowlah. Strong winds have fanned flames from a house fire to neighbouring properties and brought down trees across Sydney. And we're being asked to conserve water because of poor water quality in Warragamba Dam. Now here's Angie with Sydney's weather.
Thank you, Mark. The winds have started to ease now, but we'll notice a big improvement late this evening. Those gale force westerlies reached 85 kilometres per hour on Sydney Harbour today. The top was officially 25 degrees, felt closer to 16 at the time out in the wind. Tops were a touch cooler inland, 24 for Richmond, 23 at Liverpool and a wintry 12 degrees at Katoomba. Those winds also maintained very dry conditions. The warning area for the damaging gusts remains. It stretches from the Riverina across the south coast and up into the metro region, all being fuelled by a vigorous cold front. Tomorrow, as that front moves further offshore, conditions will ease further. We'll see a return to calmer winds and warmer temperatures. Strong winds, though, remain for areas along the coast. For the capitals, Brisbane fine with a top of 29 degrees, overcast for Canberra and Adelaide. Those showers continue for Melbourne and Hobart. Heating up in Perth, 33 degrees, Darwin 34 with showers and storms. Statewide, the winds looking a lot better tomorrow, remaining overcast through parts of the south and cold enough for more snow on the ski fields above 800 metres early. Fine elsewhere, Plenty of sunshine on the coast and in the north especially. So temperatures remain pretty chilly inland, top of 13 degrees at Orange, more pleasant in the east, 25 degrees for Newcastle. Back in the metro region, westerlies will drop down to about 20 or 30 kilometres per hour, a lot more manageable. A top of 21 forecast at Bondi, 23 at Hornsby and Fairfield. Penrith should make it to 24 and it will be nice and sunny. On the water, winds tending westerly to 35 knots in the early morning, then shifting west-southwesterly to 25 knots from about the middle of the day. So winds ease on land, but not on the water. We have coastal warnings in place for gales through the Macquarie, Hunter, Sydney, Illawarra and Eden coast, strong winds elsewhere. The CBD, a temperature range of 12 to 24 degrees, so it will be a cooler morning, nice in the sunshine with those calmer winds. Ahead, the sunshine rolls on, warmer Wednesday, 27 for the city, 29 in our west. A nice run of warm, settled conditions late in the week. Sunday, very summery, 30 in the city, 34 in our west. Just a couple of showers for Monday. Mark, looking a lot better tomorrow.
Calmer day on the way tomorrow, Ange.
Sounds good.
That is 7 News for this Monday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening. I'm Mark Ferguson from all the team. I hope you have a great night.